Hey, folks, welcome to another Manana No Mas podcast. We've been on a roll lately, bringing people in to have just one-on-one conversations that you get to be a part of. I had a one-on-one session with Derek Ashauer, with Derek Ashauer during WordCamp last week. And during that conversation, I said, you would just be awesome on the podcast. You got to come on and have a conversation with us, and we'll see where this leads. So, Derek, just tell the folks a little bit about yourself, kind of like what your projects are, a short story, and then we'll jump into a conversation.
Yeah, I've been making websites and stuff since 2000, or I don't know, 20 plus years at this point. As we all do. But lately, in the last couple of years, I've been focusing on my products. My latest and biggest one that I'm trying to grow and build is called Conversion Bridge, which allows you to add, I think we're up to 15, 16 analytics platforms. 8 ad platforms, and then track conversions from now, I think 58 plugins is what I'm at. I haven't released the 58th one yet, but just about to here shortly. So it makes it really easy, especially for agency owners or people who are doing like maintenance, maintaining sites that are all over the board. Makes it really easy. So maybe one client comes to you with Fathom, another client comes to you with Google, another client wants meta ads, another one wants Reddit ads. You never know, but you get to use one single plugin to set up the analytics and ads and track the conversions from all those top form plugins, e-commerce plugins, pop-ups, membership plugins, you name it. Like I said, there's so many of them. And that's kind of the goal. As someone who had built sites for clients at a long time, it was always annoying to let me buy this one Google Analytics conversion tracking for this one plugin, which is another $40 a year. Let me go buy this other one for this other plugin at $40 a year, and it adds up. So one plugin to add to your stack for every site.
That's it. It's so funny because I'm sitting here giggling on the inside as you're talking. I'm always amazed when you start talking to somebody about a website. Well, how much would that cost? They go right to, how much is that going to cost? And then well, we didn't really do a needs assessment yet, but it looks like you're talking about this. Oh, you're just trying to make it sound complicated. And then I just listen to you do that introduction, and I'm like, how complicated would that be? All of those different things to track and put together, and then I imagine put into a cohesive report, right? Mm-hmm. That's a lot going on. What led you to that as a product?
I think it's, when GA4, Google Analytics 4 was coming out, not a lot of people liked it. I was one of those people. I think there's still a lot of people that didn't like it. The dashboards were wildly confusing. Where was my just simple, where do I find this information that I want? How many people visit the page? How many people did what I wanted them to do? Make a purchase, fill out a form, so on and so forth. And it was buried behind these, felt like created by these, just by developers. Like, you're like, only super experts who are in here literally 9-10 hours a day can really understand this. And then with all the privacy things, laws coming into effect, GDPR and all those other things, there's a lot of people that are wanting to move to alternative analytics platforms. And that's why there's a lot of them out there now. I think there's a lot of people who don't realize, like, Conversion Bridge works with 16 different analytics plugins, I think, if I have that right at the moment, because there's so many different options that are out there. And a lot of people don't realize that those exist. I hate the idea of putting cookie banners on my websites just because I have, Google Analytics or something on there, stuff like that. So using these alternative platforms, there's a lot of draw for me to switch to use those. And then I was already selling. I have some other plugins as well that I was already selling. And so I was like, well, I need to set up conversion tracking for this. Well, okay, let me go find the code snippets. Where do I do this? And I'm like, well, I feel like there's going to be a lot of people that are going to want to switch to these alternative platforms for analytics, but still track those important metrics, those button clicks, those purchases and all stuff beyond just page views. Because page views gives you some good information, but it's not the most important information. It's really, are people doing what you need them to do on your website?
I find this whole conversation interesting, mainly because I'm thinking about my own agency and my own clients, and I'm allowing myself to get self-absorbed here a little bit. But I was one of those G4 people, like, just connecting things. I was like, this is a nightmare. Why is this like this? And then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to put independent analytics in these sites. I put independent analytics in there, and instantly customers seemed happier. It was like the craziest thing. Like, I'm going to give you something that looks like less, and you're happier. Like I was actually nervous about switching them, but then a lot of the clients in my personal use case, I got to be really careful about how I say things. In my personal use case, they weren't looking for, you know, giant drill downs on data. They really just wanted to know, is the website working? Are people visiting the website? What are my page views? Very, very basic, you know, analytic type questions. And then of course, if they want to upgrade, they can upgrade or do whatever. And I'm not advertising for them. I'm not an affiliate or anything like that. It's just, that's what I found that was easy. And I'm like that. Like as an agency owner, I'm very direct on like, okay, what's the simplest answer for X, Y, and Z, right? Like, oh, you want to do e-commerce, right? Is WooCommerce the choice, or is SureCart the choice, or is a Stripe button the choice? Like, let's take a look at your use case and what does that really look like? A lot of my sites are Lifter LMS sites, so I end up, you know, using the Lifter LMS native payment gateway, and then Bob's your uncle, right? Everything just seems to work. And I get sales data from the Lifter dashboard. So if I have sales data there, do I really need it in some other platform? And so it's interesting, like what's the client with the use case that fits you best, like for the conversion platform?
I would say it's pretty much any agency. Some of the reasons are what you address, is that maybe on this client, we only need to do an Elementor, button that goes to a Stripe page. But maybe on this site, we're using WS Form that has a payment on it, or they're only doing lead generation, or on this site, they're doing Lifter LMS. Because agencies, you don't know what you're going to get. Every client might need something different. And so the fact that you can use Conversion Bridge on every single site to add whichever analytics platform they're using. Maybe they're perfectly fine with Google Analytics because it works with Google Analytics. Maybe this one's in Europe and they actually want to use Fathom because they are really concerned about privacy, or this other one's really concerned they're bringing something else, or this one is doing Google Ads. There's just so many variations about what clients will need, because as you outlined, you got to do a needs assessment. What do they need? What is best for them? Instead of saying, I just use WooCommerce on every single client, and that's just what I do, is not the best thing to do for your clients. You want to make sure you're giving them the best solution that's going to work for their unique specific needs. WooCommerce may be absolute utter overkill. And all they really need is just a link to that, to, some Elementor Stripe button or something simple like that. And that's all they need. So the fact that you can use it for every project, regardless of what that client comes to you with, I think, in my experience, I would have loved to have something like this. I'm not doing as many client sites anymore because I'm focused on my products, but I would have loved to know that I could just grab the same tool every single time, whether like people who grab a page builder or have their favorite form plugin, and they can use that. And you can bring this to be part of your stack in an agency and reuse it over and over and over again.
Yeah, that's cool. So in full transparency to the listeners and viewers, Derek and I got together on a call during WordCamp because we both had a little bit of FOMO. We both had a little fear of missing out, and we jumped on a quick Zoom call, which turned into a pretty long Zoom call. We got along really well. Think about your fear of missing out, and then the post that you've seen from WordCamp US. Do you have anything that kind of sticks out to you in our space from WordCamp, or anything you've seen?
Something that's missing. I think in some ways WordPress, I don't know if this is going to directly answer that question, but one thing that I've noticed, and I kind of agree with some of the comments that I've been seeing lately, is that it seems like if you're in the top 1%, that's of plugins or companies, and I think I say this from a product developer point of view, that they're the only ones that are going to be able to have influence or find success in the current ecosystem. It has become, it's hard to start something right now because everyone just those top 1% just keep, being recommended for everything. And maybe there's some new ones with other similar ideas. There are some new ones coming up, but they're coming from really big companies like SureCart, who has a huge line of products. Great for them. They're coming out with SureCart, and now they have that. They also have SureForms. They have SureTriggers. They have there's a whole ecosystem. Same thing with Fluent. Now Fluent has a cart, but they also come from a massive ecosystem. And to their credit, they've done a great job at building that.
Yeah.
But now it's like you want to try and build something as an independent. I have my one plugin. it's just hard to compete against literally now multi-million-dollar marketing budgets where WordPress, 10 years ago, when I started some of my other plugins, you could do that as an independent person. You didn't need a team of 20 people and a massive marketing budget and have to be able to be able at the level where you could sponsor at WordCamp and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's not possible, but it's not nearly the same. And I think we're missing some of those innovative voices, and we're relying on those big companies to then direct everything. It's good or bad?
Yeah.
Because I've also said it's for the customer, it's not a bad thing to go into one ecosystem, so to speak, of say like the Shure ecosystem and be able to get a form plugin, an e-commerce plugin, that, and know that you can contact one company to help with all your stuff. Because it is kind of fractured in that, I need to go over here to contact this company for this plugin. I need to go over here to get this one. And I need to go over here to get, and then all of a sudden doing a support issue could be contacting 3-4 different companies, each all then saying it's their fault. And then you get the runaround and it's like, now what do I do? So there's some pros and cons, and it's changing.
It's definitely a dichotomy, right? I find myself battling internally about it because I think Jewel does a great job with the stuff at Fluent. And I myself am like, okay, I set up a client. I'm like, well, so you want a CRM? You're going to need a form tool. Let's do Fluent Form, Fluent CRM. That makes sense. They work well together. They integrate directly with Lifter LMS. I do a bunch of Lifter LMS sites. It's like it starts to come together. And then it comes down. Now they have Fluent Cart, and then they have Fluent Community, and then they have Fluent. And then you start thinking to yourself, well, I've really built kind of a masterful walled garden here. Like this is now I've just built a Fluent site. And sometimes you think to yourself, like, are these the best options? Is this the best thing that I could put forth for somebody? I am a dyed-in-the-wool Lifter LMS. I work directly with the folks at Lifter LMS, but I was just given access to Creator LMS last week or 2 weeks ago to take a look at that, and I was pretty impressed. Like, out of the box, is it feature-packed and crazy capable as Lifter? No, it's not. But from different use cases, again, we go back to use case, right? For different use cases, it might be the right answer for some of my clients.
Yeah, and that's hard to gauge too, especially when you're doing client stuff. It's hard for, you want to ask the clients, where do you see this going, so that we can make sure that you don't have to then abandon ship and rebuild your whole site, so that we can also plan. Maybe you're not using it right now, but maybe in the future you want this. So it's hard. It's as when you're building a site for a client, you want to help set them up for success in the long term as well, not just right now. And so, it's hard for you to predict that. It's hard for the clients to predict it, where they're going. Will this new plugin have all the features we need in 3? Maybe we are wildly successful. That's the goal, to be wildly successful. That's why we're doing this. And maybe in 3 years, we have plans to then open up our courses to then need to be able to do these features. And will a new platform be able to handle what something like Lifter can handle? And which one do you go with? It can be hard to juggle and decide.
Yeah. Now I'm thinking about your product, right? So the show's about you. So I'm thinking about the conversion product. And as you add and build those features or those integrations, this is kind of like a forked tongue question, I think. How difficult is it, or how much effort in comparison actually building the product are you spending on documentation and training and getting people to understand what it is that you just offered? I feel like people would get into it and just be lost.
I'm learning that there's a little bit of an education component to what the major pain points that Conversion Bridge solves. There's a lot of plugins. There's existing plugins out there that add Google Analytics to your website. You can cut and paste it into the header and footer. Those are ways to do it, and you can add the core things. What Conversion Bridge brings is that next level, that conversion tracking. And what I'm learning is there's a lot of people who are like, what do I need to track? I thought all I had to do was add Google Analytics and I was done. And I'm like, oh no, I'm sorry. You've just started the journey of tracking what you really need to do to improve your site over time. Like you need to convert or track your conversions. What should I be tracking on my site? Well, if you're an agency, you need to be tracking form submissions and maybe even phone calls. If you have a client that's selling a small product, you need to make sure that you're tracking whenever someone makes an actual purchase. It might even be what button clicks. If you're constantly you're working on a homepage, what buttons on that homepage are people clicking on to go further into the site? Which ones are more effective? Maybe you want to change that headline call to action. Which headline then got people to click on that button? If you're not tracking those things, you don't know what's actually working on your website. And so there's a lot of people who just think, I put analytics, I'm done, I walk away. That's all I had to do for my client. And I'm like, that was the start. And there's a lot of people who I'm recognizing that need that extra, like, because a lot of my marketing is, for example, Lifter LMS conversion tracking. Search that. Hopefully you find Conversion Bridge as an option. Well, there's a lot of people who don't recognize they need to be tracking the conversions on a Lifter LMS site. You need to be tracking when people sign up for a course. And there's a lot of things. Lifter LMS might have stuff when they're inside the course of what they complete and statistics, stuff like that. But this is about marketing campaigns. Are you spending money on Google Ads? Well, then you absolutely better be tracking conversions. Otherwise, you're flying blind as to which ads are actually working. You could just say, oh, well, someone clicked on an ad. That doesn't mean anything. One of my favorite examples is also you need to get detailed reports or data on what's actually converting. And what that means is you could get, let's say you ran an ad and you had, there's 2 ads. One of them got 100 clicks and sold 10 products, and you made $100 on that. What if you had another ad that got 100 clicks that sold 5 products, but made you $200 because they bought higher ticket items? That ad led to people maybe buying the higher level plan of your service, things like that. So just knowing that people converted still isn't even enough. Knowing what they converted with is still data that you need to get. So those are, and then that feeds back into your Google Ads or your whatever you're tracking to better understand what is the most effective in growing your business. And without conversion tracking, you're literally flying blind.
So the flying blind part is, well, I'm going to be careful not to ruffle too many feathers. I work in the online course market, right? So everybody has a great idea. Everybody's got a course. Everybody, and it's our own fault because we say things like everybody has a course within them, right? So we want them to develop courses, but so many people fail, and it's so it's hard, right? Because I'll take on a new client and I'll start talking to them, and then almost instantly I'm like, this person's going to make it or this person's not going to make it, and my own products have been through this. Chris Badgett was nice enough once. He looked at my Power Sport Academy website and I was like, dude, I'm getting some traffic to it, but nothing's converting. I don't know what, maybe I emailed the wrong list. Maybe I did. And he looked at the headline and he goes, well, your headline says XYZ. That doesn't answer a pain point. That just tells people what you do. Right. And he's like, so you need to know what benefit you're giving people. How are you fixing their pain point? So what's their pain point? And so you have to articulate what their pain point is, that you've identified it and that you have a solution for it. And then it was like a crash course right there on like conversion text. And what's so weird is, as an expert in the space, I thought I had conversion text, but I didn't. And that point that you were making earlier about A/B testing or seeing different things, that is so real. Like, it never does stop. And I think there's a lot of people that think it's set it and forget it, or get some level of success and then assume that's the pinnacle of it and drop it and think it's going to be on autopilot after that.
Yeah.
Keep getting spam right now where some lady is saying, after I sold my first course for $11 million, I learned I don't have to do launches anymore. I just put my sales on autopilot. And I'm like, there's no autopilot, lady. What are you talking about? That's interesting that you set it up that way. Have you found that when you work with people, you end up having to coach them on the actual action of it? Like change the color of the button, change the heading, do you get into that stuff? Or is it really like, here's my tool, go experiment?
I mean, what I'm trying to do is sell to the agencies, who then the agencies should be telling the clients that they are that's what they need to be doing. And Conversion Bridge is a tool to add tracking to make that possible. So once they work with their client, that, hey, guess what? We got this headline in 3 months. let's try a different headline. Let's try some different things, things like that. So I'm not, I mean, if someone asks me, of course I'll try and help them out as best I can. But that's one of the, that's kind of the angle that I'm going is teaching agencies that they need to start tracking. And even if their client doesn't want it right off the bat, they should still be tracking it, even if they're not doing it. The reason why is it's for their own portfolio.
Yeah.
So that they can say, hey, we redesigned this client site and now their site gets 27% more form submissions because we created a better looking website. Conversion Bridge is so easy to set up, slap it on the existing site right now. Right when you sign that client, say, hey, can I get access to your current site? Slap it on there, start tracking the conversions. It takes a couple minutes to set up at most. You start getting that data in the analytics platform. And then in a couple months, once you launch your new site for them, then you have a before and an after to compare to. And then when you're building your agency, your portfolio site, you can not just say, look at this pretty website we made for this client. Look at this pretty website that led to 47% more sales, that led to 27% more form submissions, that grew their, stuff like that to help. That's what, companies really want to see in your portfolio. They obviously want to see a pretty looking website, but at the end of the day, that's these days, especially in the days of AI, where AI people can just build their website so easily. It's stuff like that agencies are really going to need to act as a guide to help their clients improve their business, not just make a pretty website. And so having data that you can actually improve a business is going to be a huge differentiator from other agencies in your area.
I'm going to ask a couple of different questions for you, and I got them stored up in my head here. So, what do you think was the biggest challenge in releasing this plugin?
It's getting it known. It's just getting people to find it. That's so far as getting it off the ground and competing against the plugins that have existed for a long time. And also being something that is something, as I described, I think it would be a great solution to be in a lot of agencies' stack, something that you install on every site. Like I said, page builder, contact form, Conversion Bridge, my SEO plugin, whatever it is that you install on every site. Agencies have maybe something, a flow or a stack that they have. Getting in there to change, and you say, I want to change our stack. We've built 100 websites over the last 10 years, and we've just done things this way. We've copied and pasted in header footer all the time. That's just what we do. Do we want to introduce a new element to our stack and change how we build sites? Does that mean then we have to go back and edit all our sites and do stuff like that? So, so getting it known in the first place, and then also trying to be a part of stack can be a challenge, because I've been there. Agency, you start getting used to doing things a certain way and building things a certain way. It's, and you get some flows down. You get your team who knows how to do everything. To maybe change that up a little bit can be a little bit. But thankfully, I think Conversion Bridge is so easy to set up. It only takes a couple minutes. It's not like you're redoing a page builder or or anything like that. So it's pretty easy to throw in there.
So this leads me to my next question with this product, and that's it's just, in your opinion, do you think adoption is sometimes difficult because, as it turns out, a large percentage of agencies never track conversions for their customers in the first place?
Yes, absolutely. That's part of the education component that I talked about. I don't think there's a lot of, I'll be honest, when my agency career, I didn't do it nearly as often as I should have, but that was also because it was a pain in the butt. It was, where for this plugin, how do I add conversion tracking? For Give WP, how do I do it? Okay, let me search the documentation. And how do I do that? And so on and so forth. Or I have to buy yet another $30, $40 plugin that does this for this client. And it just felt nickeled and dimed, and it just was a pain in the butt. So I think there's a tendency not to do it. But like I said, even if it's not for your client directly, I think as an agency, you can use it for yourself in your own marketing. So then say, we grew this website by this much, but if there's no conversion tracking, you can't make that claim. I mean, I guess you could lie, but you could make it up. But, or we grown this much traffic over time. If you're not really doing analytics or tracking conversions, it's harder to say that. And I think Conversion Bridge can help agencies even in their own marketing to do something like that. But yeah, I think that there's just agencies that simply don't. I get a lot of people who say, I've been meaning to do that. I just haven't gotten around to it yet.
Yeah, I could see that a lot. And that's going to take me to a more positive question. And that is, what's been your biggest, win or feel good moment in putting together this tool and releasing it for people?
It's getting that feedback, people saying, wow, this was just really easy and I loved using it. It made something that was a headache into something that's just really easy. So getting those kind of testimonials, that kind of feedback, especially when they're unsolicited, they're just like, hey, I just want to let you know, this is just so easy. And that was the goal. That's why I created it, was to take something that was a pain in the butt and make it a lot easier for people who avoid it because they felt it was overwhelming and didn't know how to do it or didn't want to deal with it. So yeah.
I see it as, and I think you're absolutely right. People avoid it, or they see it as a pain in the butt, or they think it's next level, right? Like, oh, that's next level. Like, I'll worry about that when I'm the size of, Web Dev Studios or 10 Up or something like that. But realistically, you got to offer these types of services if you're going to experience growth and move up the food chain a bit.
Yeah.
I think about the services we used to offer as an agency versus what we do now. Like you had mentioned tech stack. And for me, the tech stack is inbuilt. Like, it's like, I already know that there's these 5 or 6 things that are definitely going to go into this project and every project. And then there's kind of a menu of things that we do. But I think more importantly is like our process. So it's not just the tech stack, but it's like we have a certain process in place and how we communicate with clients, how we deliver information, and how we train the customer to work with us best. When we were starting out as an agency, we were morphing into everybody else's communication cycles, right? Like, someone wanted to be on Teams, someone wanted to be on Zoom, someone was on Skype, someone was on, and it was like, okay, this is getting a little ridiculous. I got to be on 19 different platforms trying to grow this business just to communicate with the customers. And what I found was, if I create the experience for our agency, from Manana No Mas, well, now that this is our process, this is our policy, and then everybody adapts to that. I don't have to adapt to 50 different things. And I feel like the way you describe your product is similar in that way. I feel like it's, instead of having to chase all these things down, it kind of comes to you and it works easily. That's cool. So let's abandon that. There's going to be links in the description, folks, so don't miss out. You're going to have a chance to get your hands on this thing. I wanted to ask, from a personal perspective, what do you really enjoy about being in the WordPress space?
In the WordPress space, I think as a developer, just working in the WordPress, that kind of space is, it's just the ecosystem of stuff. It's like, one of the things that I used to use or still do use is to tell clients, it's like, great, you want this custom thing built. You have this project that you want made. And there's lots of different ways that you can do it. There's going to be lots of people who can build it this way. Other people can build it that way. If I build it on top of WordPress, I can probably build it for a tiny fraction of the cost, because 80-90% of it has already been done by these other companies. And we can put that onto a great content management system. And so it's really easy to get most of the way there on some of those things. And the things that aren't, it's easy then to expand upon and add upon. We're not locked into, this is just how it is. It's like, well, we found this tool that gets us 80% of the way there for this thing, and maybe 90% of the way there, but it's not exactly. Well, guess what? You want to go a little bit further when you grow and you want it to change, and you want to do something a little bit different or custom for your specific needs. I'm sorry, you have to adapt your business to how the software works. With WordPress, I can then, especially as a developer, come in and say, I'm using this plugin. You need to do this little extra thing. We can either ask them to custom develop something, I can custom develop something, and we can make it work exactly what works great for your business at a fraction of the cost compared to other places. And to me, that seems like an easy sell and a great way to approach stuff is to build sites in that way.
From the e-learning perspective, I'm in that category because I deal with a lot of enterprise clients that might be paying $250,000, $300,000 a year just for the hosting and maintenance of a custom platform for their e-learning. And then I come along and I go, well, if it's SCORM-based content, we got this tool, right? So we could use this tool plus this tool. We can still run your SCORM. We can still give you all that synced reporting from that type of content, but we can run this whole thing for 50 or 60 grand a year as opposed to $300,000 a year. And when you talk to an enterprise client, a lot of times they don't believe you at first, right? So you show them some samples and they're like, oh crap, we can do this. And it's like, yeah, because it's almost like those people are stuck back in a time machine. Remember when a decent laptop was $5,000 or $6,000, like way back when, and now you can buy a laptop for $900. I'm talking about good laptops. Well, for them, they're still thinking that an LMS is $500,000 to build and $300,000 a year to host it and maintain it. And it's like, that just doesn't work in today's tech marketplace. You can build these things much, much more affordably. And so that works there. But for me, like my big takeaway with doing work in WordPress is just being honest with you, Derek, it's been the freedom. I made content on Friday that was me standing in front of my grill. I had a brisket on the grill, and I was like, yeah, that's right. It's 2:00 on a Friday afternoon, and I got a brisket on the grill. Why? Because I own my own agency. I can schedule my time the way I see fit. I'm assuming working in the space has afforded you a lot of personal freedom in that regard too.
Yes. I mean, that's, I wouldn't say it's WordPress specific though. I would say it's more of just being self-employed, which comes with a lot of pros and cons, a lot of stressful nights. Like I built my first plugin back in 2013 called Sunshine Photo Cart for photographers to sell prints and digital downloads through WordPress. And I was up till 4:00 in the morning with a relatively newborn at the time and doing that kind of stuff. So it comes with, running your business, building products comes with stressful things. But also this morning, I definitely wasn't going to work on a Monday. And then I rolled in on Tuesday. I got out of bed at, I had to get my kids to school, but after I get my kids to school after 9, I can take my kids to school. I get back a little after 9:00. That's a freedom that some people don't play. And the first thing I did when I got back was I got sat in my hot tub for 45 minutes because that's what I'd rather do to start my week as opposed to diving. Like I got to be on work calls. I joke with a lot of people. My wife, she loves working at a large corporation. She likes the consistency, that's her thing. She doesn't like, that's her preference, is to know that she has, it's a little bit more stable consistency stuff that she likes. But then she's also on 4 or 5 calls a day. Like I had to check with her, because we work in the same office. She's usually right behind me. And I had to check, are you on a call right now? Because she has 4 to 5 calls a day where I don't, I rarely have any calls. I do most of my calls are podcasts and other stuff like that, or meeting with a mastermind group, which are calls that I choose to have, not ones that I have to have. And yeah, it's a lot more freedom. I could coach my son's soccer team, because I could be done at 3:00 if I needed to, and go coach and do that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, I don't think it's WordPress specific, but because of WordPress, I've been able to build an agency and build products and have a business around WordPress that has given me these freedoms.
Something that came out on our private call during WordCamp, I divulged that I had my own WordPress agency for over a decade before I even knew that there was a community in WordPress. It was similar for you, wasn't it?
Yeah. So I only started, I think I attended a WordCamp Denver, maybe, I don't even know when that was. I lost what year. It was maybe early 2010s, and didn't really do much, kind of didn't talk to anyone. And that was the only time I ever really did it. And really made my first, in 2023 in DC was the first one where I really made an effort to start connecting. And that it's been a big differentiator. It's been really helpful to actually connect with other people, even especially other product owners, agency owners, and all that kind of stuff, and just get out of my one man, because I was one man. I was the only one doing my, not really an agency, as maybe many people listening to this are, a one man team, doing everything yourself. And yeah, just being able to know that you're not alone. I'm not the only one having this problem. And for me, that's often, a big relief. It really helps mentally to just know that you're not the only one. And there are lots of people that I've really found that there's a lot of people that are more than happy to give you 10 minutes of their time, give you hours of their time to help with something, stuff like that, or just be someone you can chat to, talk to. And it's been invaluable to me.
Yeah, and you answered the second part of that question voluntarily without me even asking. That was great because it was going to be, what difference did the community make for you? And it was very similar for me. I had grown the agency. It made money. I mean, I got clients that were like the size of Ducati North America, right? Like I thought I was doing okay. And then it was Chris Badgett that kind of introduced me to the idea of the WordPress community. Hey, we're going to WordCamp. Do you want to go? It's in San Diego. And I was like, sure. At the time, I lived an hour away from San Diego, so it made sense, right? I can commute. And it was like an eye opener. It was just absolutely totally different. Like all of a sudden I'm having conversations with all the people from products that I had bought, or interacting with people like, oh, I had a suggestion for that, or just as silly as it was, right? It just seemed to work. I met people like Spencer Foreman. I met Adam Weeks. I met like a ton of people, and it was like quality people. It wasn't like, I didn't feel like I was just meeting people at a local business networking thing, shaking hands and leaving. I felt like I was meeting people that I was either going to continue to converse with, maybe on post status or on X or something like that. And to me, that was the big deal. And you pointed out, like, everyone's got a different sweet spot in the space. And my sweet spot is not the same as yours, is not the same as James Lowell's, is not the same as Adam Weeks. And by being able to incorporate that kind of into my network, now I feel much more confident in talking to clients, because I know that even if I don't have the answer, I know someone who does.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. And from my perspective, a lot of my time once I started joining the community, it was once I made the decision to start focusing on my products as opposed to agency stuff. But just like I think you pointed out made a good point of just like being able to talk to CEOs of these companies and how accessible everyone really is. Like, being able to talk to, CEOs or big people at Elementor. And you're like, I never thought I would have been able to talk to someone like that.
Yeah.
And to actually sit down and have a conversation with them, not just like oh, hi, and then walk by. But there's just so many people that are open to talking to you no matter what, no matter where you're at, where they're at, and stuff like that. I've had conversations with Chris as well, had conversations with great other people who I admire for how they run their WordPress product company, and being like, I look up to what you found success, how you've done it. You've got some experience, and I'm so appreciative that you're willing to even spend 10 minutes, let alone the hour or 2 hours of having a conversation with me in person or on Zoom, or even just being able to, the fact that I could send a message on Slack and just say, hey, I had this question and I feel like you might know this, and know that you're going to get an answer, like a good answer, and not just someone being like, blowing you off. It's just how open and willing a lot of people are in the community really surprised me, and how easy it was to, like, someone myself, I was very like, I don't know if I can get into this. I was very nervous that first WordCamp of who can I talk to? And then I dove in and just all of a sudden was like, oh, this is not nearly as scary or as hard as I thought. And I've only reaped rewards from participating, throwing stuff out there, and just being like, oh, what the hell? Why not?
Yeah, no, it's been really, really good. And even with the, the trauma and the drama of the last couple of years, I have found that, unless you're really in those tight circles, none of it mattered anyway. And I say it out loud, and I realize on the show people will comment and say something weird to me, but just realistically, I mean, I had clients that were on WP Engine, and I said, are you getting emails? Are you getting, oh yeah, we are. I said, well, pardon me. I said, is there anything I need to do, as your provider to make you feel more at ease with this? And they were like, Kurt, last I checked, the website worked. Like, we don't care. And I was like, okay, as long as we're good. And that's what I started to take away from that, was like, in the grand scheme of things, we might see something that seems incendiary in the way that it's presented, or the way that it, gets blown up on X or something. But in reality, the the size and scope of the influence of WordPress is like so immense that these things are just pebbles in a pond at some point. Like I think that we've blown some things out of proportion over the last couple of years. And I think if anything, all of that trauma has really, at least in my case, it's helped me settle down and realize this whole thing's a whole lot more stable than people think it is. Like it's here. There's developers like you in the space, and it just makes things like it's not going to go away, right?
Yeah.
Things might change a little bit, but it's stable.
Yeah. My takeaway from that, honestly, is that it sounds like, and is what I took away as well, is that you have done your job well by making sure that the client isn't concerned about the minor little things that are going on with every last little detail of their website. They trust you. You're taking care of it. And like I said, the website's up. We're still making money. We're doing things. Yeah. I mean, like you are the proper level of layer between the technology and the client, and making sure that everything's just getting handled and that they don't have to micromanage every last little detail, of that. And so that's what I'm hearing when you say that, is that you have the right level of authority for your client, that they trust you, and that they don't have to worry about that. They figured if there was something, you'd probably tell us if there was something. And that's what I think agencies need to be, and people doing sites for clients, is that your clients need to be able to, should trust you, instead of them just, the old adage of being a pixel pusher. Is that our job doesn't have to be a pixel pusher. Our job is to be, especially in the age of AI, is to be consultants and guide clients and make sure that things are handled for them so that they don't have to worry and concern themselves with those minor little details.
Yeah, I always like to tell clients, if I do my job right, I manage the site and then you just manage your business.
Yes.
Like you focus on what you do well, right? What you fix cars, you bake pizza, you focus on what you do well. I'll focus on what I do well. And together, everything's going to be fine. As long as all that holds true and it works, then Bob's your uncle, everything's great. So I want to make sure that I value your time, right? Because you've been awesome to come on the show. If somebody wants to connect to Derek Ashauer, first off, we've talked about you were doing client work and you've cut back a little bit on client work because you're focusing on products. Are you entertaining like custom development requests and things like that? Because I want to make sure if that's on your table that we mention it. And then secondly, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you regardless?
Yeah, I'm still taking it on. I may be a little bit more picky about which ones I'm taking on. It's got to be a better fit. I think my strengths are more aligned in where I was doing small brochure sites for 15 plus years. I'm now doing, if you need a custom development, if you're using Lifter LMS and needs a custom feature, I'm a great person to connect and do that with. Or you have a whole custom, I built a custom LMS system for someone a year or so ago because they just had very specific needs. That didn't they just had very specific needs and wanted things to work a very specific way. I was like, yep, sure, we can do that. So, so that type of thing, absolutely looking to still work on those types of things. Because I'm still growing my products. I'm still trying to become product first. I'm kind of, balancing it. Every month it's a little bit different. This month was maybe 60% client income, 40% product. And then next month it's 60% product and whatever. So yeah, so I'm still entertaining that kind of stuff. But you can find me, I'm probably too much on X. So on X at Derek Ashauer. But then you can find my main product company is WP Sunshine. Where it links off to all my products from there. Conversion Bridge is my biggest one at Conversion Bridge WP. I have sunshinephotocart.com is my photography one. And then my small ones, again, are listed. I have a confetti one where someone does a conversion, submits a form, makes a purchase on WooCommerce, stuff like that, shows confetti. I think it's just a fun little, pleaser to have on sites. So I have some smaller ones on there as well.
That's awesome. Folks, this has been Derek Ashauer. I encourage you to reach out, get in touch with him. Even if you're just in the space and you just want to make a connection on X or LinkedIn or whatever, that to me, that is part of the benefit of doing these shows and exposing these awesome people to you out in the audience. Have a great one.
Thanks, Kirk.